Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more of the Great War, and we are on to week 184 Strikes and Mutiny. Now, before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you join the Discord. Okay, perfect timing, am I right? Love it. Okay, that was a short lived balking session. Where was I? Make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I'd love it if you join the Discord and follow me over at Twitch. And also, please do go check out the gaming channel here on YouTube, where I upload old stream VODs because Twitch doesn't let me keep them up forever. And I also upload dumb clips here and there. Also, the day that I am uploading this, I believe, should be December 16th. That day is the day after my birthday. I will be busy on the 15th, but for the day after my birthday, December 16th, the day that this is being uploaded, if I'm doing my math right for the videos I have in backlog and when this one will be uploaded, um, I will be doing essentially a long ass Twitch stream over at my Twitch. Probably going to be playing Nolva's Skyrim because that's a pretty easy game to both play and also, you know, hang out with chat, hang out with you guys. Now, this is probably the Great War doesn't necessarily get the most views on this channel, so this is probably a terrible video to be trying to advertise this on. I should have, moved my recordings around or whatever and have this be like an overly sarcastic productions day or um a Blue Jay day, that would have gotten views. But oh well, we'll live with it. It is what it is. The people that watch this series, I feel like y'all that keep up with this series are the ones more likely to go and actually hang out with me while I'm live if you are able to. But yeah, there will be a couple of subscription goals to hit over at Twitch. Of course, do not feel obligated to give me money. Remember, and a reminder, pretty much I believe half of the money if you go through Twitch itself goes to Amazon, goes to Twitch, Twitch, Amazon. It does not. So I only, for a $5 subscription, I see $2.50 of it. So of course, if you do not want to, that's not your vibe, totally get it. I'm also the same way. Uh, so I also do have a donation link below that goes directly to me. The website that I use it through, they take a small cut, smaller than what Twitch takes. Um, but yeah, and that's also a way of just donating one time instead of, you know, maybe accidentally having an automatic resub every single month. Um, there's options, blah blah blah. The dono goals, I don't know if they will count towards um the subscription goals. I might do something like that. I think that would be a good way of interaction, right? People don't want to sub, but they do want to donate, right? They could still, that still goes towards. No, fuck it. Yeah, we'll have the dono goals also go toward the donations go towards the subscription goal. I'll do like the math in real time on what they equate to in terms of subs. Blah blah blah. Um, but yeah, there will be. I haven't entirely decided, but I know the dumbest goal is at 200 subs. If we hit 200 subs over at Twitch, I will order a maid outfit and wear it on stream. One stream. One stream. Unless I make fucking bank wearing it, then I might do it more often. But I'll say now, one stream. Unless I make bank. Again, if I make bank, I will do mostly anything. I want money. And I don't want to work hard for it. Come on. Anyways, that's the announcements here. Please I'll probably be going live around 1 p.m. US Central Standard Time. So about hour and a half, 2 hours. from when this video is uploaded. Um, so yeah, let's cover it. That Twitch link description below. Let's dive in.
It's 1918. The war began in 1914. There is
Woo!
no end in sight, and the men fighting for both the Entente and the Central Powers are fed up. And what does that mean? It means mutiny on both sides.
Oh shit. The Germans are gonna have some? Right. I don't think we've heard of any German mutinies yet. I think we've had Austro-Hungarian mutinies a little bit. I know we've had Italian and we've had French. We've not dealt with, I don't think the British have had any problems. The Russians definitely have some, but they're out of the war now. Ottomans, I don't think they've had any. The Ottomans and Germans, I think, are the only two that we haven't heard really much of mutinies that I can remember off the top of my head.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the Finnish Civil War began, and the Ukrainian one continued. There was naval action in the North Sea and at the Dardanelles. The Germans finally decided where their Western Front spring offensive would take place, and British Prime Minister David Lloyd George was trying to maneuver around Army Commander-in-Chief Sir Douglas Haig. Those machinations continued this week. The Allied Supreme War Council met January 31st at Versailles and ordered Haig to remain on the defensive in the West until at least the spring. They then discussed French and British Army reserves, a fairly important issue. Lloyd George proposed an inter-allied reserve created from both French and British armies, with French General Ferdinand Foch in charge of it. Haig had a suspicion that this was another attempt at creating an overall generalissimo, so once the politicians had approved the idea, he asked the tricky question of who he should in that case appeal to for access to his own reserves, his Chief of Staff Willie Robertson in London, or a French general. It's a pretty good point. I mean, the commander-in-chief should have access to his own reserves, so it followed that the only way this proposed system would work would be if the man commanding the reserves was in fact the overall commander in France. A committee was set up to deal with this issue. Foch was its president. Now, last week we saw Henry Wilson appointed Chief of Staff.
Bro just looks on his deathbed in that painting. God damn.
To the new Allied General Staff in France. Wilson wanted Robertson's power from London reduced, so Robertson's request to be on this reserve committee was denied. Robertson actually called the Council's Executive War Board the Versailles Soviet and said that having two chiefs of staff for one army would destroy confidence among the troops. He may be right. On the 2nd, the council meeting will end after an enlargement of its powers is announced. Speaking of actual Soviets, there was a lot going on with the Bolsheviks this week. On the 27th, they broke off diplomatic relations with Romania. On the 29th, Bolshevik troops enter Kiev and Odessa in Ukraine. And on the 31st, with large parts of Ukraine coming under his control, within 2 weeks the Red Navy and then the Red Army will officially be formed. Thing is, on February 1st, the Central Powers officially recognized the Ukrainian Republic. The Rada, the Ukrainian parliament, had voted for Ukrainian independence and a separate peace with the Central Powers. But this would deprive Russia of a big chunk of its economic base for its claim to great power status if that happened. This was part of an interesting German strategy. Foreign Minister Richard von Kuhlmann, nominally leader of the German delegation for the ongoing peace talks between Russia and the Central Powers, had gone into those negotiations telling the German Reichstag that he would stick with the July 1917 peace resolution formula of no annexations or indemnities. The wording around this, though, was really vague. But that didn't matter at first. Kuhlmann and his Austrian counterpart, Count Ottokar Czernin, figured that if the Russian Bolshevik government turned out to be as short-lived as everyone expected, then the armistice would, as it had, detach Petrograd from the Allies and pull the Russian soldiers home, saying that they...
Like, that's the crazy thing that I think we kind of forget about, just because, I mean, the Soviets, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of, like, their, you know, compared to the USA has been around longer. You know, the British government's been around longer than how long the Soviets last. But, you know, 70, 80 years is still a good chunk of time for the kind of government and the time period that, you know, it sprung up in. Now, of course, it was still very authoritarian, right? But in terms of concept, you could say, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. uh, but also, like, when we look at essentially the political, the just the politics of of Russia at this point in time, it there really is no reason to be confident in the idea that the Soviets are going to last. Um, right? There's nothing really they've got going for them at this point that shows that, oh yeah, they're going to last. Um, because also the whole world is, essentially going to be like against them, right? When especially when the red versus white civil war really kicks off, and like every single like most foreign nations were sending support to the whites, and some of the reds still won. Um, we got to do a probably should watch a series on the Reds versus Whites civil on the Russian Civil War there. Get some more information on that because I don't know much about it. Um, but yeah, I think we just forget because of how also prevalent the Soviet Union became within global politics that it's hard to kind of think about the fact that at the beginning they was quite frankly they probably should not have succeeded, right? They probably should not have been if we use like historical precedent, the just the general affairs of the world at that point in time. They probably shouldn't have won.
They weren't after annexations and indemnities meant they could make a separate peace with Russia, but keep a free hand in the lands they'd occupied, none of which were ethnically Russian, and sort of stage-managed declarations of independence. So self-determination could be used to push back Russia's borders and create supposedly independent buffer states. Back on Christmas Day, the two had scored a PR victory with their Christmas declaration, which offered to negotiate a peace without annexations or indemnities, if the Allies would do likewise. This was clever since they knew the Allies would not accept, so there was no risk in this declaration. Thing is, though, this plan was now having big repercussions in Germany. High Command, the Oberste Heeresleitung, or OHL for short, had not been consulted before the declaration, and Army Chief of Staff Paul von Hindenburg and Quartermaster General Erich Ludendorff were seriously upset about this. We've already talked about the German military's territorial demands from the peace conference, and Army Representative Max Hoffmann's unwillingness to surrender territory that Germans had died to take. German Chancellor Georg von Hertling backed Kuhlmann, saying that politicians were responsible for the negotiations. And the Kaiser? Well, Wilhelm, for once asserting his rights as an Arbeiter, endorsed a statement by Hertling that the Christmas Declaration was a legitimate move in the political game, that annexations in the East should be minimized, and that cooperation with Austria-Hungary was of cardinal importance. So the
German politicians in this part are right. That move was quite frankly, probably the best move that they could make in this chess game. If we want to use an analogy. um, that kind of PR statement, no matter how truthful the German politicians really would want to like agree with that, they by knowing that the Allies are going to say no, they can say something that they know that the Germans themselves would not agree with. Uh, really, the Allies would just have to like. There's no downside if the Allies accept it for the Germans, because the Germans still get a bit of a PR buff from it, but also some of course benefits to themselves with how that peace treaty would go. But they also get but with the Allies rejecting it, they get a massive PR boost to it too, right? It's a win-win no matter which way the Allies were gonna like. That was the smartest move I think those politicians could have made in this situation.
German military and the politicians seem to be standing on opposite sides of the same side. There was turmoil within Germany itself this week as well. Huge worker strikes, first in Berlin, then Kiel, Munich, and Hamburg. More than 400,000 workers struck. Martial law was declared, and the strike soon ended. And I'll talk more about this in the coming weeks. Right now, I need to talk about chaos within the actual armed forces.
Oh.
On February 1st, there was an Austrian naval mutiny at Cattaro, led by 2 Czech socialists. 6,000 sailors raised the red flag and announced their loyalty to Bolshevism. They did, however, play the Marseillaise rather than the Internationale, and their demands were more similar to Wilson's 14 points than to Lenin's decrees. National autonomy in the empire rather than independence, immediate peace without annexations, demobilization, and better living conditions. 3 battleships from the port of Pula were dispatched to put down the mutiny. 800 mutineers were removed from their ships, 40 were tried, and 4 executed. And to the southeast that same day, there was a mutiny on the other side by the Greek 2nd Infantry Regiment at Lamia. Now, this regiment was comprised of men recruited from southern pro-royalist Greece, and many of its soldiers had been influenced by royalist agitators, right? So drunk soldiers returning from their leave during the early morning hours urged their trumpeter to play the prohibited royalist anthem. After that, around 1,000 individuals, soldiers and civilians, shot the electrical cables of the city, cutting power. When they ran out of ammunition, some deserted to their villages, while others returned to the camp. The next day, the 9th Cretan Regiment arrived to restore order. Many rioters mutinied again, fearing the repression of the government, and some joined the reservists, royalist militiamen, in open sedition. This insurgency will last nearly 2 weeks, and special military tribunals will follow. 25 men will be executed. Others receive prison sentences, but soldiers of low rank were punished with suspended sentences in order to force them to remain at the front. There was scattered action in the skies of Western Europe this week as well. On the 26th, the Germans bombed Dunkirk, Calais, and Boulogne. The next day, the British bombed Treves and the French bombed Metz. The 28th saw an air raid on London with 67 killed and 166 injured, and 1 German plane shot down. The British bombed Roulers and other aerodromes. A raid on the outskirts of London the next day left 10 dead and 10 wounded. And on the 30th, 14 tons of bombs, 267 bombs from 31 planes, were dropped on Paris. 49 people were killed and 206 injured. On the Italian front in the field this week, the Italians attacked the Austrians the 28th, capturing Col di Rosso and 1,500 prisoners. They captured Monte di Valbella the following day and stopped a strong Austrian counterattack the 31st. And that will end the week. Small actions on the battlefields of Europe, intrigue upon intrigue among the Allied leaders, and yep, intrigue upon intrigue among the Central Powers leaders too. There were strikes in Germany and a mutiny on each side. There was also a notable death away from the front this week. John McCrae died January 28th in military hospital. McCrae was a Canadian doctor who had written a book on pathology, volunteered as a gunner when the war began, and then transferred to the Royal Canadian Medical Corps. He was also the author of the poem In Flanders Fields, which I read a couple years ago and which I'll now read again as a tribute to Dr. John McCrae. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. If you want to learn more about the situation in Greece during World War I, you can click right here for our special on that. Our Patreon supporter of the week.
And that was Strikes and Mutiny, The Great War, week 184. This was a good week. I don't really have anything to add here at the end. But again, I just love that that what this show is really good at being able to do, because of it being week by week, is that we're really able to kind of, even though we know the outcome of everything, right? We know the outcome of the war. We know the outcome of the Russian Civil War and Russian revolutions. We know their outcomes. We know what happens. But because of this being week by week, there's just something about it allows me at the very least, and I think it also, you know, the wider audience in general, I think it just allows for the audience to get a better, it makes it easier to understand the uncertainty of the time, because that's always a very hard thing to do with history, is to really convey that uncertainty. Because right when we look back on a thing, it's almost as if we can just see the puzzles falling, the dominoes falling into place, the puzzles just easily sliding in for a certain event to happen, right? Like, um we look at World War II or World War, like any war, and like the Allies win both world wars. It's, to us, so far away from the event, it does seem, and especially like in terms of World War II, you could really argue that the Allies were always going to win that war, right? It just matters how long it was going to take, because really there was no way that the Germans and Japanese would have had the resources to sustain that war. But anyways, um, World War One a little bit more up in the air, but still, like, for the people of the time, the information that they had available to them, going week by week here makes it very much easier to understand that uncertainty that the people of the time had. Uh, and that's just, like I just said like a minute ago, repeat myself. That's something very hard to convey in history, I feel like. The uncertainty of events, of an outcome, just because we have the hindsight, right? Um, so what this show does, I think, really well is really show that uncertainty. And that was the Great War Week 184. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.